Oh hey guys, I've recently been getting bullied at school because of my seeming obsession with a blue rat known as Sonic the Hedgehog. But I'll have you know, I actually hate Sonic. I was faking it the whole time. I only play shooters and nothing but. That's right guys, you've thought wrong of me this whole time. I hate kids games. I'm a manly man and there's no way around it. I'll have you know, I stubbed my toe the other day and I only cried for 20 minutes. I played every shooter in the book, every Call of Duty, every Doom, CSGO, but of course I've played Half-Life. Half-Life is a first-person shooter developed by video game company Valve. Valve is known for making some of the best PC games of all time, dare I say, best games of all time. Portal, Team Fortress, Left 4 Dead, but by far their most influential game is Half-Life. Half-Life was made because reportedly Valve was disappointed with the genre of the first-person shooter and wanted to expand upon it, saying that many FPS games were very surface-level and shooting galleries and wanted to evolve the format of this genre. I got that from Wikipedia, so it must be true. They did this by making actual characters with personalities and by incorporating many scripted sequences inside of the game to tell a precise story. Keep in mind that this game was made in 1998. Video games weren't really known for their storytelling at the time, especially in the FPS genre. So in 1997, the game Half-Life was put into development, aiming to be the most expansive and immersive first-person shooter at that point. But did it succeed? Yes, I think it did. Many ambitious games around this time are very good for the time, however start to age poorly as time progresses. Watch my Mario 64 video to see how far I'm willing to take that point. But I think that while Half-Life has its flaws that have been aged by time and more fleshed out by games coming out afterward, this game still ages greatly at the end of the day and it's still a lot of fun. Up until recently, my only true experience with this game was the multiplayer, which is very fun by the way, but I took it upon myself to finally play the game. Hopping into the game, we're given a tour of the Black Mesa facility, the facility the main character Gordon Freeman works at. Gordon Freeman is a silent protagonist, but we're given some information about him through NPCs in the game, especially around the start of the game. We learn that Gordon is a theoretical physicist and is highly respected within the Black Mesa facility. Gordon is tasked to test on a new machine called the Anti-Mass Spectrometer, but by mistake pushes an unknown alien crystal into the machine. Doing this destroys the machine and opens up a rift between Earth and a dimension called Zen. So now Gordon is tasked with defending the Black Mesa facility and not allowing any of the hostile alien creatures to leave the facility and take over Earth. What I really like about this game, and especially the opening, is that we're given lore through optional dialogue and hidden things found by searching. Meaning if you really want to, you can completely ignore the plot and just play the game and, shoot aliens. Or you can spend time in the facility exploring and finding secrets to get a better understanding of the plot. I really like this way of telling a story, making it completely optional if you so choose. It makes the game more playable for everyone. This game also opts to use zero cutscenes whatsoever. Instead of a cutscene showing you what happened, you see it in real time and you can move the player or move the camera to react however you want. I really like this because sometimes cutscenes pull me out of the gameplay and cause me to get distracted, but when I can move around during it, I'm still immersed in the gameplay. I also probably have ADD, which explains a lot more than whatever I just said, but regardless, I still think this is a really cool way to immerse the player in the game. The gameplay itself is very similar to games like Doom. You run around the Black Mesa facility shooting aliens and completing small puzzles. The puzzles aren't really puzzles since they're normally pretty obvious, but I don't know how else to categorize them. Most of them just consist of moving interactable objects to reach specific areas. The only time the puzzles were really a challenge for me was this one part where you have to conduct enough electricity to blow up this three-headed alien bird-looking thing. And that's because it just wasn't working. I spent like 2 hours before I ended up going back in my saves and redoing and it worked that time. Either the puzzle was a weird sequence of events I had to do or my game was bugged. The next thing I want to talk about are the weapons in the game. You have a very diverse range of weapons to defeat the enemies in the game. In games like this, I usually stick to using one gun, but this game encourages you to use multiple different guns. The first gun you get in the game is the pistol, and I expected to stop using it when I found a better gun, but I realized the pistol is actually very useful and I only started to use it less when I had many more guns in my arsenal. Pistol ammo is by far the most common ammo found in the game, which makes it a good gun for far-ranged enemies where you might miss and waste some ammo. While the pistol damage percentile is not very high, it's a very useful weapon to have, and I found myself using it a lot more than I expected. Another gun I used a lot was the assault shotgun, which I probably used the most throughout my playthrough. I don't really have much to say about this gun besides that it's useful, so let me read what the wiki says about it. The shotgun is a Franchi Spaz 12 automatic shotgun that loads from the bottom. Spread open some head with a barrage of lead. You know the drill, but now you can see the walls turn into Swiss cheese. I have no idea what any of that meant, but I thought it was funny. The wiki mods are poetic. I also found myself using the MP5 a lot, especially later in the game. Mostly in scenarios with many enemies, specifically when there's like a billion assassins going after you, that part sucks. The first actual weapon you receive in the game is a crowbar, and surprisingly I found myself using this a lot even later into the game. It's required in some parts to break some glass or boards, but I mean for combat. When there's very few enemies and they're all spread apart, I would often use the crowbar so I could save ammo, which starts to get more scarce as you progress into the game. And then they have grenades, which are just funny.
Incoming! What? Ow! Medic!
There are some other weapons in the game, but these are in my opinion the most useful / the ones I actually used. There's a lot I didn't use. But what's the point of having weapons when there's nothing to kill with the weapons? Which brings me to the enemies. The game's enemies consist mostly of creatures from the Zen dimension, which got put into the Black Mesa facility. Because of the thing at the start of the game, you got stuff like zombies, houndai, and alien slaves, which are all pretty basic melee enemies. But then you got the annoying enemies, which are more challenging, and by more challenging I mean more of a f***ing pain in my ass. Like the head crabs. The head crabs kind of just jump at you sometimes, and you have almost no reaction time, and they're really hard to hit because they're really tiny and they're constantly moving. Yeah, I'm a head crab hater, and so you should join my club. I don't have any friends. Next we got the barnacle. These enemies stick onto the ceiling and stretch out their tongues, and if you run into them, they pull you up. And when they pull you up, you must shoot them or else they'll eat you, resulting in an instant death. They're pretty easy to avoid just by going slow, but at times when you're going fast, it can be a huge pain in your ass. It also gets painfully annoying since you take a ton of fall damage from the smallest heights in this game, so no matter if you kill them or not, you're taking a huge chunk of health. The fall damage thing falls into the Half-Life jank. Listen, Half-Life is a very good game, and in my opinion, for the most part, it ages great, but this game still came out in 1998. Of course, the game isn't going to age the best. My main issue is that the game can feel really unfair at times, like how most enemies take away a ton of health with a single hit in the previously mentioned high fall damage percentile. I also feel like sometimes the game doesn't do a great job with hinting you at where to go next, so you just mess around until you figure it out, which can be fun in its own right, but still would become an issue at some points. It also could be very obvious, and I'm just very stupid. It's probably that. There's also some backtracking in this game, which always throws me off, but it's not horrible like a lot of games from the 90s. But it always messes up my thinking when I have to go back and do a part of the game that I've already explored, so that makes backtracking always an issue for me. A lot of this is sort of fixed with the game's very nice save state system. You can save at any time, meaning directly after a hard section you could save and not have to ever do it again. Also, I really like this mechanic and I wish more games handled saving this way. But it's less of a fix and more of a way to make it easier to try over and over again in an annoying part. Like when I previously mentioned that part with the three-headed alien chicken looking thing, yeah, this mechanic was very useful for that part. I don't like that part. What are those things even called? Tentacle? That's lame as hell. I'm going to three-headed alien chickens. The visuals in this game were crazy for the time. In 1998, most PC games were made with the budget of a penny, chip, and used napkin, but this game showed that the PC was capable of so much more. And I think for the time, this is one of the best looking games on the PC. Of course, now it doesn't look great, especially the textures, but I mean for the time, this is very impressive. And yeah, this game was pretty huge for the time, so to have this good of looking graphics with a pretty big Black Mesa facility was pretty crazy at the time. But you can tell where they had to make some limitations for this game at some points. The game reuses a lot of its assets, and my god, the amount of times they reuse that same scientist model makes me want to scream. It got to the point where whenever I would save one, they would give me some health as a thank you and then I would pop their head with my pistol. I was so tired of seeing that model. Overall, I find this game to be one of the most influential games of all time, up there with Super Mario 64 and Grand Theft Auto. Obviously, it's not without its flaws, but it's hard to imagine what the first-person shooter genre would be without this game. And the community for this game is still thriving to this day. For one, it still has a decently active online player base, but it also has a very active speedrun community. And it has some pretty cool speedrun categories, like Jumpless Backwards and my favorite, Crowbar Percent, where you beat the game only using a crowbar. This game also got some expansions which further expand the plot, being Half-Life Decay, Blue Shift, and Opposing Force. These are all side stories from the base game, and I think that these were a really cool way to expand the plot. A few years after this game was released, it received a sequel, and then the series went dormant for 16 years. But don't worry, in 2020 we got Half-Life Alyx in VR. I want to look at both Half-Life 2 and Half-Life Alyx in the future, along with some other Valve games I have experience with in the future, so leave a like if you want to see that. Also leave a like if you don't want your entire family murdered. Was that a joke? Who knows? But I'm gonna say your safest bet is to press that like button. You love your family, right? Well anyway guys, have I proven myself to be more than a slave to that blue bastard known as Sonic the Hedgehog? I can talk about other things, I swear. I didn't prove it. I just talked about the manliest game known to man besides the Guy game on the original Xbox. Well, I guess there's only one way to escape the Sonic Hell Purgatory, and that's to pop in this game.
Question. Steven Spielberg won his first Academy Award after directing which movie? 1. E.T. 2, Jurassic Park. 3. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Or 4. Schindler's List?
My brain says E.T., but my gut says Schindler's List. Well, you know what they say about the body. I choose Schindler's List.
Correct. Here's your reward.